Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show is brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory, all with great warranties, by the way. Never discount the value of the warranty. And they have great warranties. Pre-owned vehicles with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. They go over every vehicle. And a fabulous service department that backs it all up with terrific technicians that take care of the life of the vehicle. It's Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 Hummel's Wharf, online at sunburymotors.com. Time now for the Macatrillo. Let's turn him loose. Let's allow him to vent. Rant of the day.
Well, this kind of goes back to talking about the Sixers from yesterday when they lost to Boston, as they had another difficult loss, bad luck, so to speak, against the Heat last night. Not that it's damaging for the season or whatever, but just from the overall scope of things with the Sixers, everyone took the Boston game as, oh, it's still a step in the right direction. What are you watching? I mean, in terms of starters, sure, because the Sixers led most of the way, just couldn't close it out. But the Sixers, again, have the same problem again and again the last couple of years until management, Daryl Morey, who's always just stuck in getting stars and not depth, and Josh Harris, God only knows what he thinks about every day. He's like the biggest incompetent airhead of an owner I've ever seen in Major League Sports. That's another topic. But the bottom line is the Sixers team, again, on bench, does not have depth. They do not have a bench. They have Tyrese Maxey, who's basically a glorified 5th A starter, if you will. The Sixers are not going to be able to beat the Bucks or the Celtics or any other good teams in the West if they don't have a bench. No one understands that. That has been the way it's been for the Sixers. That's why they still haven't been able to get over the hump, and I don't think will this season. It's because of the bench. So there's no positives to take from the Boston game, and last night was just flat out frustrating in the end because the Sixers literally couldn't keep up with the hot shooting of the Miami Heat. And then just having Jimmy Butler have the game that he had and the game winner the way he did, it's just kind of salt in the wound because of just the past with him and the Sixers, and I just think he's a flat-out goof. But that's where the Sixers are right now. And I understand how everybody can think positively after these last two games. They are the exact same team just about as they were last year. This ownership and management has done nothing to move them up to the next level because they have never addressed the bench.
Oh, you're done? Okay. I felt like you were on a roll there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Josh Harris is still continuing to become owners of more division rivals of the Philadelphia sports team, an area that he owns. Because that makes sense.
What's he buying?
Oh, he's been in on the Commanders. He's like second or third right now behind Jeff Bezos. He already owns the Devils, which was dumb enough to start off. So, like...
Let me ask you something. What's so dumb about wanting to own a sports team? I mean, what's so dumb about that?
You have one, and you can have a more successful one than you have right now in the 76ers. But because you've got your hand in 5,000 other different sports, a couple of the rivals of the building of the team that you share the building with, and then now you're trying to get in on the rival of your football team in your city, that just makes no sense at all. Pick a team and put some substance into it.
Well, you can own multiple teams. I mean, my goodness. Glazer owns the Bucks, and he owns Manchester United, right?
Yeah, and that's fine. And Joshua Harris owns one of the English Premier. That's fine. Right. But when you when you're trying to go after and you own division rival, that's a total violation. You can't do it. It doesn't make business sense either.
Kroenke owns the Colorado Avalanche and the Rams, and he also owns the Denver Nuggets. And he also owns the Colorado Rapids of MLS. I mean, you got money. I mean, Terry Pegula owns the Bills and the Sabres and the Rochester Americans.
Yeah, but that's all in the same area, same as the guy in Colorado.
But you got to knock
that makes sense.
But you got to knock off the Philly stuff. Who cares? Okay. If he wants to own the Commanders, it's a National Football League team, okay? There's 8 billion people in the world. 32 get to own an NFL team. He's not going to buy the Eagles.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to buy the Eagles. He has the Sixers already.
Fine. Then he wants to own an NFL team. There's nothing wrong with wanting to own an NFL team, and there's one available. I don't understand what the issue is with that. You got to be loyal to Philadelphia? Cut me a break. You don't have to be loyal to Philadelphia at all. He's got to look around as a businessman and ask himself, okay, owning a National Football League team normally is let's face it, great TV contract. I mean, tickets, the whole thing. You'll be welcomed with open arms because they want to get rid of the other guy. I don't get the issue. Just because he has a Philadelphia team, that means he can only own Philadelphia teams?
You can own a Philadelphia team and do the Premier League. That's fine. But even so, when you buy a team, put your resources into it to grow it into something. He had a chance to do that with the Sixers, and he still has a chance to do that. But because he's got his hand in 5,000 different places, including with the Devils, and now trying to get the Commanders, the Sixers are still staying kind of where they are right now.
Matt, you act as if he is the only person running the show. He's hired people to do the job. Right? If he's looking at them saying, okay, you can't spend more than X amount of money, and you're tying the hands of your people to do the job, okay, now you've got an ownership problem. But if they're at the cap limit, if they are at some other issue that you have that you can't overcome, the logistics of the league, I mean, you hire general managers of these teams. I mean, the Fenway Sports Group owns Liverpool, the Red Sox, the Penguins. Right? And I think they're going to attempt to get an NBA expansion team in Las Vegas because part of the Fenway Sports Group, a small percentage, is LeBron James.
And even that I would be okay with because it doesn't interfere with the teams that you're with. You're not into to a rival of a Boston team. You're not into a rival of the Pittsburgh team.
What does it matter? What does it matter? There's 32 of them. It's irrelevant.
But you're working against then the franchise that you own by owning the rival of that other franchise.
What? I didn't know the Commanders played basketball.
No, I'm saying
I thought the Commanders played football and the Sixers play basketball. So, it's not as if he bought the Washington Wizards and they're going to now compete against the Sixers, which he also owns. It's a totally different sport, totally different business, completely different business model. And there are only 32 of them. If he wants to go after it, I don't blame him. I'd go after it. What the heck? I mean, if I had all this monopoly money to play with, I'd go after it too and own an NFL team. I don't see what the issue is. It's different businesses. It's different sports. You're not competing against. I don't see what you're saying he's even competing against. He'd be owning the Washington Commanders. He owns the Philadelphia 76ers. They don't compete against each other. Just because, I don't know, maybe there's a mindset in Philly I don't flat out get. But
well, this is not because it's just a Philly thing. I see this from an overall standpoint. It has nothing to do with it being in Philly. I just don't think it makes sense, period.
You have different people managing your different sports. So the management group of the New Jersey Devils is totally different than the management group of the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, if you're owning too many teams and it then is hamstringing your management team as to what they can do or cannot do financially, then it is a problem. But if you're sitting there with unlimited amount of cash and you're looking at them saying, hey, look, whatever the rules say that we can do and the parameters of the cap happen to be based on the league we're dealing in, go for it. What's the difference? I mean, it's not like being the Pirates ownership. Bob Nutting only owns the Pirates. And then we found out last week when everything fell apart with AT&T Sportsnet because of the regional sport, because they're owned by Warner Brothers Discovery, that the Pirates get $60 million from that deal, and the dude is obviously just pocketing the money. He's not putting anything back in the team. That's a bigger issue to me than whether the Philadelphia 76ers owner owns the Washington Commanders. You act as if he's slapping Philadelphia fans in the face by buying Washington. What the heck do the Sixers fans care that he owns Washington? They just care whether he's doing right by the Sixers. And he's got people around him that are making evaluations on talent and how to make it happen. He can't help if they made the wrong choice in Ben Simmons. He didn't make that pick. I don't quite see your point here. I think your point is he owns the Philadelphia NBA team, and it's wrong for him to own a Washington NFL team that will compete against Philadelphia. I think that's your point.
Correct, because let's just say it this way: if I have gone to Sixer games before. I'm just using this as an example, so it hasn't stopped me personally, but I wouldn't be surprised, and this can go for any market, especially any big market like New York or Boston that we've talked about. If I'm a Sixer fan, and I also like the root for the other Philadelphia sports teams, and I'm going to support the Sixers in a game. I'm paying for the parking, to go ticket, concessions, all the whole 9 yards. And I realize my owner is now already owner of the New Jersey Devils, who is one of the division rivals of the Flyers, who they share the building with, Wells Fargo Center. And now he's trying to get into the Washington Commanders, a division rival of the Eagles. What does that say to me about how I am as the Philly sports fan?
Well, wait, you're an Eagles fan, right?
Yeah.
You're a Sixers fan, right?
Yeah.
But you're not a Phillies fan. You're a Yankees fan.
Correct. I like 3 out of the 4.
But so that's okay for you as a fan to do that, but it's not okay for him as an owner?
For me as a fan, it doesn't matter. For him as an owner, you have to look at it from a business. Majority of your fan base is probably going to be 4 for 4. I'm in the minority, of course, because I'm 3 for 4. So you have to think of, am I going to be losing fans coming to the games because they're upset with me being owners of rivals of the other teams in the city? And this goes for anywhere else.
All the fans.
I just think it's. What does that tell me as a consumer about your priorities?
You want to know what the 95% overriding reason why a fan goes to the game?
I know, for the experience.
To win. Okay?
And to win, yeah.
They could care less who owns it. Just win. The vast majority of people in the city don't know who even owns the teams. They just want you to win. Right? Who Who owns the Philadelphia Union?
I forget off the top of my head.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
All right. They just want them to win. They get to the final. They lost. It's a Philly thing. See, they fit right in with everybody else.
No, senor! No, senor! No, senor!
I mean, Jeff Lee Lurie's been there for a long time, so people know him. All right? Harris has been there for a little while. Okay, people are getting to know him. It's like when the Snyders had the Flyers. Everybody knew because they were there forever. Ed Snyder was there forever. Okay, so everybody knew over and over again. I mean, for goodness sakes, in Boston, nobody knows who owns the Celtics. You know that? I mean, Delaware North owns the Bruins. Right? Kraft is an entity unto himself, so everybody knows he owns the Patriots, but nobody knows who owns as an individual owner. It's a group that owns the Bruins, and it's and the Celtics ownership is anonymous. It doesn't matter. Do they give you the resources to put a winner on the ice, the court, or the field? That's all the fans care about from ownership. That's all they care about. And if they're being held back by ownership, like Bob Nutting in Pittsburgh, now the fans care about ownership. There are 32 NFL teams in the world. He has a chance to buy one of them. Can you blame him?
If you had nobody else to own, then sure. But you've got 4 other ones that you own.
This is America. If he has the resources and is allowed to buy it, why, and he wants to, why can't he? Because there's only 32 of them. There aren't 320 of them. I mean, the Eagles aren't for sale, but they are. I mean, why do you want to tie the hands of somebody financially because of some magical line in the sand that says you own a Philly team, you can only own another Philly team? I don't get that. Like, it's a slap in the face to the city he wants to buy Washington. Well, Washington's available, and it's an NFL team. Right? Not exactly 5 million of those out there. And rarely are they for sale. I don't blame him. What's the difference? Who cares? Let me ask you something. Why is it on a lot of things you care and a lot of things I like, who cares?
That's a good question.
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters at all.
Maybe this is ultimately why you're Mr. 45 heart rate.
Yeah, I didn't even think twice about the fact that I understood that somebody told me Bezos isn't allowed to buy it. I don't know why. I'd have to look it up. Well, we've got Neal Coolong coming up in a moment. Maybe he can resolve this. Nate Bauer today as well. Okay. And this part of our show is not only brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors, but also by the group that makes paper bags. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. I could see you. If you had Harris's money, you'd be buying stuff left and right. I can see it now. Lisa, great news. We just bought the Cowboys.
Then I'll just get, huh?
Yeah, but again, you'd be like a billionaire so many times over. Like, it's like it'd be like a sports franchise dude would be a toy. I can see you now. I'm trading Dak Prescott. Why? Because I can. here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
There's something to be said about a sale with a handshake, a service technician who really knows what he's doing. They can explain it in English what the problem is. There's nothing better than having that friend you could trust in the area. That's Sunbury Motors, where you get selection, knowledgeable salespeople, and prices that fit your budget, and more important, that friend you can trust. Welcome to Sunbury Motors, Kia, Ford, and Hyundai. You could shop other dealers and compare prices, but at Sunbury Motors, you get their lowest price promise. They research the current used vehicle market and guarantee their used car prices are the lowest. If you find a lower price, Sunbury Motors will beat it. 3 dealers all in one. See their full new and pre-owned inventory at sunburymotors.com. Pick out a vehicle you like and schedule your test drive online. Follow them on Facebook. Sunbury Motors Ford and Hyundai, North 4th Street, Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right, Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia. Routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Every Tuesday, I just put my feet up and welcome in a friend, and that is Neal Coolong. My friend, welcome back.
As always, it is fantastic to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, so the Combine in Indianapolis, and people get a long look at these players. How have you always viewed the value of the Combine?
Value of the Combine, I think, to say it flat out, it's a team's ability to get time with the player, to talk to them just about who they are, try to get to know them ahead of the pro day circuit. I would say this to anybody that disagrees with that. The one thing everyone that goes to Indy for the Combine does is interview. The marquee guys don't throw, they don't lift, they don't run. They will interview. They show up to do the interview piece of it. Yeah. General managers, while they're essentially forced by the NFL to go speak, which is the only reason media go to the Combine, they're there to watch and everything like that. Some of them might sit in with certain players, as many as they can get. It's kind of tough to maneuver around to get to as many guys as you can. But the value is really just the conversation. It's one gigantic speed date between team personnel and prospects. And I would argue that that's a pretty smart way to do it. It's hard to get everybody you want every team to have an equal opportunity to speak to as many players as they can. When you put it out to pro days, you kind of get to choose who takes you to dinner, famously within the Steelers world. Mike Tomlin always seems to get the top guy at whatever pro day he goes to
right.
Take them out to dinner. Not every team has necessarily the ability to do that. In a league that's driven by parity, that is very set up unilaterally, you want teams to have an equal opportunity. I think the Combine is probably the best way to do that, to get everybody to know who the prospects are. And then, if they're there, if they want to watch, confirm what you see on film. Make sure that, the time that you get of this guy running a 40 is about what you think is right watching him on film. Maybe there's some, some medical questions or concerns that can come out of it. A player gets an opportunity to address something that might have happened during the season. It's a communications event more than a physical event. Let's put it that way. We've joked for years about the underwear Olympics, and we'll make those jokes again, hopefully here in this segment, because it's always a good time. But in the end, they get the opportunity to show who they are as people, as young men, auditioning for jobs. And I think teams weigh that pretty heavily in what they're trying to do. It helps them sort out who is a fit with them from a character perspective and who might not be.
All right, so I was on a show in Pittsburgh about an hour ago, and they were asking me about Joey Porter Jr. because every time they turn around in a mock draft, he's there. And I told him, I said, look, he'll test well this week. I mean, there's no doubt about that. He'll test well. And then, of course, they wanted to know about where he became better as a football player. When you look at a player like that, his father is NFL pedigree, obviously. He was an outstanding player in the NFL. What were your thoughts on him going into this draft?
A prototypical size for the position. He's lanky, and he moves like a kid who is a lot shorter than he is. And that's really kind of what you look for in a cornerback. You've got to have that reaction speed. It's a quickness position. And the tall, lanky guys don't tend to be that kind of sudden. He is. And he reminds me of, physically speaking, he reminds me of kind of a Richard Sherman, Antonio Cromartie type, the 6'1" guys with really long arms. Press corner all the way at the NFL level. There's a lot to like with him. I don't see him getting out of the top 12. I think it's obvious why people would mock him to the Steelers, and I would say the Steelers would absolutely love to draft him at 17. I don't think he's going to be there at 17. I agree with you, though, and you have a much better perspective of this than I do. He's going to test well. He's an athlete. I'm not saying he's a Hall of Famer just because this position has more volatility than any other in the draft. He is as prototypically built a frame of a cornerback with the athleticism the cornerback needs as we're going to see in this draft. Is he there as a player yet? Well, that's part of the development, which is to say, I mean, it's not often you get Jalen Ramsey, who's as secure a cornerback prospect as you're ever going to see. That's the guy that goes top 3 at that position. You just don't see that position drafted that high. Top 12 is really good for a cornerback prospect. I'd imagine that's probably where he'll end up. I mean, we'll see how it all shakes out, but he'll run well. He's explosive. He can jump. A lot to like with him. He's a fun player to watch.
And I got to watch all of it. It was great. The Omar Khan did talk with the media today, the first-year general manager of the Steelers. And he had praise for the offensive line. He had a lot of praise for the offense. The one area of the team he didn't have praise for, especially, was the secondary. What were your thoughts on his evaluation of his football team and where it is?
What I got, it's interesting you brought up the secondary part. What I got from that was almost like you're passively going public with the Cam Sutton negotiations. Huh? It's really hard for me to think that they don't want to bring Sutton back, and price is going to be a concern. Again, back to the word I used earlier regarding cornerback prospects, volatility. You don't know where they're going to be year in and year out. One minor ankle tweak takes a cornerback from elite production to average. That's why you see so many average cornerbacks to below average cornerbacks stick around the NFL as long as they do, and so few elite ones staying at that level for a long period of time. Sutton is a guy that you've invested in already. You've already given him a contract extension, and he's playing his best football. It's a volatile market, but I would say you're looking at APY for him, $14 million, $15 even, in a pretty good buyer's market. So I don't know if they're trying to kind of suggest, to make sure that it's on record in there with his agent that they feel of him this way, and that's why they're justifying what they're offering. I feel, though, he is probably a guy they want to keep. I think there's going to be a team with perhaps a bit more cash that is willing to add on another year to a versatile cornerback like Cam Sutton's contract in order to keep him long term. Whether that's enough for Sutton, I'm not sure. But to me, it was almost like that was a veiled commentary on that process, not negative or positive so much, but just more withheld. And that, along with that, everybody who's not named Minka in their secondary is either a pending free agent right now, or they're entering the final year of their contract, which doesn't look real good for them to keep. So, theoretically, this won't happen. But theoretically, they could have an entirely different secondary to what they had last year, with the exception of Minka Fitzpatrick. So, I don't think he wanted to lavish too much praise on all of them, because I think he's putting together a puzzle with that. it's hard to say who they're going to keep, who they're not. And I think one decision could come after a decision on somebody else is made. And it could be this guy goes into the market, doesn't find what he wants, comes back. They end up signing him again after a week. It's sort of like what happened with Terrell Edmonds, sort of like what happened with the combination of Levi Wallace and Akella Witherspoon last year. They signed equal contracts. It kind of seemed like they went after one and ended up with both of them. So I think he's putting multiple things together and not wanting to speak too forwardly about their ability, just to not try to up their value. He's trying to work on a budget within their secondary. That's assuming you want all of their secondary back, which I'm not sure is the best idea. So, maybe he really just wasn't pleased with them overall. I don't think I'd blame him for that opinion either.
No. I mean, their top two free agents are Cam Sutton and Terrell Edmonds. Okay? Other than that, I mean, and they've got room to operate here. So it's going to be up to them as to how they want to handle. Because to me, free agency, you fill whatever gaps you have, and that then sets up how you're going to draft. That, to me, is free agency.
Yep, in a lot of ways, I think it's kind of the final nail to your draft board. What can you get?
Yeah.
Where is their value? Because you don't know, especially you're drafting the back half of round one. You're not entirely sure who's going to go where. You have kind of a sense of it, but you might be on the fence. We can bring in a guy, but we're not feeling good about the prospects at this position being able to play in year one so much. We want to bring in a veteran to kind of pace them. I'm not sure if we want to do that because we want, philosophically, we want our rookies to be able to get on the field right away. That isn't going to work necessarily with this group, so let's sign this cornerback. Well, it turns out that, this cornerback didn't want to play there. Now they have to draft a guy to come in and play right away. So it finalizes what they'll want to do. And I find myself talking about the cornerback position again. I don't think it's an accident. I think that's probably a top position of intrigue for the Steelers heading into the draft, but it is for free agency as well. So a lot of talk about the cornerback position. I think that's what it's what they need to do. It's what they need to address for the 2023 season as well as the next 3, 4, 5 years, leading into it.
Daniel Snyder. Okay. So far, so good. Allegedly took on a $55 million loan through the Commanders without informing the minority owners and receiving their approval. All right. And the key is it became 16 months before buying out the individuals who can buy for 40% of the team. Now today, he charged the franchise $10 million a year to use his own private jets and also charged the team, or put it on their budget, a $4.5 million number to put the team's logo on his personal plane. For the National Football League, is this the long national nightmare?
I think it's funny because we discussed this at Sports Illustrated on the desk when the story first broke of him selling the team. Because at first it was like, okay, well, let's not just assume he's running to sell all of it. That might not be the case. He bought out partners before. Maybe he's looking to bring some on just to be more, cash rich than he is. We don't know yet exactly what stake he's going to sell. Each day that goes by, there's more and more stuff that in a league that an ownership group within the NFL, talk about the management power of the league, they pride themselves in secrecy, in unification, at least to the public. Snyder does so many things that breaks down the walls that they've built up, and those stories always seem to get out. So it's like, I don't know even now what his plan is. Does he want to sell his entire stake? I think at this point, if he's doing all these things, he's aware that these stories are coming to light, and that's not going to fly. If he's writing stuff off his own team's budget, that's probably more him doing that than it is the rest of the league because, revenue and all of that tends to have to be collectively bargained, with the exception of, I forget the term of it, stuff that isn't within those negotiations. It's still split up and shared among teams, by and large. Mm-hmm. They have ways to maximize their own profit. Maybe Snyder sees this as his way of doing it, but it's his own team that's paying for it when he's taking out loans from the same team and the same ownership groups that he just bought out. It's just, smart financial investigative reporters are going to dig and dig and dig into this guy, and that is absolutely not the attention 31 other NFL owners want. So it's remarkable to me how it's all coming out in kind of a drip fashion. Just imagine if you got all of that in one news day, though. You covered nothing but the Washington football team Commanders for 30 straight days, just trying to get all of the information out. But he's cordoned it off well enough for us so we can stay on top of one crisis at a time. But that'd be a tough place to work right now. I mean,
no doubt
they've got some problems from a PR perspective, from a financial perspective, from an ethical perspective, from a legal perspective. I can't imagine they don't have just massive turnover among the upper management of that group. There's no other way to look at that.
Well, the key to me in all this is that the NFL has yet to release the final findings from Mary Jo White on the Commanders. And I think they've been hoping that the mere fact that she's doing this would force him to sell, and they can stay away from a messy report that then forces him to sell, because they haven't released it yet.
That's the real interesting question, isn't it? Because, and I know I'm probably getting more Hollywood theatrical here than I should be, but
oh no, go for it.
Well, what I'm saying is that it's not an accident that they haven't released it. What they find in that, basically, I honestly, it would not surprise me if they were looking for anything they possibly could to make him sell. Okay? There was a lot that made him change the name that he didn't ever want to change. Okay? There were significant actions that led to that on the direct fault of him.
Yep.
Whatever's in that report, it makes you wonder if they're not going to, stick it in the same blast furnace they did with the Spygate videos if he sells the team. And that's contingent upon that. If not, they'll release it, and then the public is going to, go even more bonkers over all this and force action of some type. In other words, it's kind of like, look, you have to buy. You're trying to get a stadium built, okay? You're simply not going to do that. There's just no way you, of all people, right now is going to do that, and that makes you toxic to the rest of us. You're the one guy that can't get the stadium built. That's how much you screwed this up. We want you out of the way because this franchise needs a new stadium. That's what we care about. So here's our leverage. Sell the team, make a profit, go away. Built, shake hands and smile at you in public if we ever see you. But this has to stop. To me, that's the most plausible scenario that this represents. I hate to say this, but if I was an owner of an NFL team, that's what I'd want to do right now. If I couldn't get him to sell any other way, there's got to be something, because it's holding everything else up. He's dragging everything else down, and that's not conducive for anybody to do business. And it's time that this ends. I mean, you can't even the Jaguars watch turbulation as Snyder and Washington has created over the last 2 years. That's amazing.
Wow. I mean, I think they bought the land in Woodbridge, Virginia, to build the stadium, be like $55,000. And the Virginia legislature won't approve it. In other words, okay, what state says no to an NFL team unless it's his team? Unless it's his team.
They're not even saying no to the team. They're saying no specifically to him. I mean, that's a real problem. People are not going to get reelected if they're supporting this. That's how toxic he is. And they all know it. It's I don't know. I think you and I talked about similar Washington-related issues last year, if not 2 years ago. And what we know is we can never say this is over. Who knows what's coming next? We've discussed having beat reporters specifically to cover the legal and financial implications of the Washington franchise. That's significant. It's really hard to cover, and every day it just feels like it's something else.
My friend, always a pleasure. You know that.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine. I hope you guys have a good day.
You too. Neal Coolong joining us on the show. I was asking about Harris possibly buying the team, but I just kind of felt like at this point it feels like a root canal to you.
Get the lingerie on the deck. Call the janitor.
Without Novocaine. Here on News Radio 1070 WKO.
No good! No good! No good!
I didn't think the interview was that bad.
No, it's always a pleasure with Neal.
The suit, white jacket, lowers the brim of the hat, starts the moonwalk. Unfortunately, there's an incident.
I can't kill him for that because I try to do the same thing, so.
That you tried to moonwalk?
Yeah, I do a pretty mean moonwalk.
I'll take your word on it. Don't really need to see evidence.
Oh, yeah, I can tear up the dance floor. I've been known to do that.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So if I get Kozora back on the show and I ask him about your ability.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. In fact, he may or may not bring up a time where we tried to drag him out to the dance floor numerous times. Because he is definitely not the dancing type.
I think at dance school, my nickname would have, if I'd gone to dance school, my nickname probably would have been Limping Ox. All right, so I've done just enough to make sure in the father-daughter dance at the wedding, I was good enough.
There you go. That's all that matters.